People don't value what's available. They crave what's withheld. It's a truth older than civilization itself, yet almost every man today lives in defiance of it. He chases, he explains, he gives without restraint, believing generosity will earn him love, loyalty, or respect. But the opposite happens. The more available he becomes, the less he is seen. The more he offers, the cheaper his worth becomes. Scarcity has always been the silent weapon of dominance, the invisible lever that bends human desire. From ancient kings who rationed their presents to emperors who made audiences wait for days, the powerful have always known. Value increases when access decreases. Machiavelli understood this better than anyone. He warned that rulers must appear unpredictable, even distant, so that their attention feels like a privilege, not a right. But here's the tragedy. Modern men have lost this instinct. They live in a world of constant availability, flooding others with attention, emotion, and validation. They confuse openness with strength, not realizing that the man who withholds commands, the one who overgives. In this video, you'll learn why scarcity doesn't just create desire, it creates control. You'll see how Machiavelli's dark psychology of withholding power still rules human behavior today. From politics to relationships, because most men destroy their value not through weakness, but through excess, and those who master scarcity become untouchable. We live in an age that worships abundance, endless communication, infinite content, constant connection. You can message anyone, anywhere, at any time. You can share every thought, every feeling, every second of your life. Society tells you this is freedom, but Machiavelli would call it weakness disguised as virtue. Abundance kills value. When everything is available, nothing feels important. The modern man gives too much of himself, his attention, his words, his emotions, believing that being open makes him likable. But in truth, what's freely given is rarely respected. The more you reveal, the less you are desired. The more accessible you become, the more invisible you are. Think about the digital world. The man who posts daily, who replies instantly, who constantly seeks to be seen, he drowns in the noise of sameness. Meanwhile, the rare man, silent, selective, hard to reach, instantly commands intrigue. His scarcity breeds imagination. His mystery makes others chase clarity that he never fully gives. Machiavelli understood that power is built on perception. When everyone knows you, when everyone can reach you, you cease to be interesting. You become predictable, and predictability is death to influence. Scarcity forces others to value your presence, because it reminds them they can lose it. The world praises abundance because it's comfortable. It asks nothing of you but surrender. Scarcity, however, demands discipline, the courage to hold back when others overexpose. And that's the paradox. Men today drown in abundance while starving for significance. They've forgotten that mystery is not manipulation, it's magnetism. Machiavelli understood what modern men have forgotten, that power doesn't come from giving more, but from giving less. In The Prince, he wrote that a ruler must ensure his followers remain dependent on his favor. It was not cruelty, but strategy. Dependency breeds loyalty. Certainty breeds rebellion. A man who gives too freely invites ingratitude, while the one who withholds commands devotion. Machiavelli saw human nature with brutal clarity. People respect what they fear to lose. They obey what feels scarce. When a prince limits his favors, his presence becomes a privilege. When he withholds rewards, his approval becomes priceless. It's not the abundance of kindness that holds an empire together. It's the controlled rationing of it. This principle extends far beyond politics. In every sphere, relationships, business, social dynamics, the same law applies. The one who controls the flow of value controls the relationship. Attention, time, emotion. These are the currencies of modern power. Spend them recklessly, and you make yourself poor. Restrict them, and their worth multiplies. Imagine two leaders. One is always available, always eager to please. The other speaks rarely, appears seldom, but when he does, the room stills. Which one commands more authority? Which one do people follow instinctively? The difference isn't charisma. It's control through absence. To withhold strategically is not to be cold, it's to be conscious. It's understanding that distance creates demand and unpredictability sustains respect. Machiavelli advised rulers to be both feared and loved, but if forced to choose, to be feared. Why? Because fear is born from scarcity, the scarcity of approval, of presence, of certainty. Every man has a kingdom, whether it's his relationship, his workplace, or his social circle. And in every kingdom, the same law reigns. Give too much, and your crown becomes commandant. If Machiavelli revealed the strategy of scarcity, modern psychology explains why it works so powerfully. The human brain is wired to chase what's rare. We crave uncertainty more than certainty. We're addicted not to possession, but to pursuit. Every surge of desire begins with deprivation. When something feels scarce, the brain releases dopamine, the chemical of anticipation. It's the same chemical that fires when you gamble, when you wait for a message, when you want what you can't yet have. Dopamine isn't about reward, it's about expectation. It fuels obsession. Psychologists call this the scarcity effect. The less available something appears, the more value we assign to it. Limited edition products sell faster. Only 3 seats left compels instant action. In relationships, the person who seems slightly out of reach becomes infinitely more desirable. The illusion of loss intensifies emotional investment. That's why Machiavelli's principle of withholding isn't cruelty, it's alignment with human nature. People don't fall in love with what they already own. They fall in love with what they might lose. They don't follow the one who is always there. They follow the one they fear might disappear. In business, the same law rules. A brand that floods the market loses prestige. A leader who's constantly explaining himself loses mystique. The man who's always available becomes background noise. But the one who appears rarely, yet powerfully, becomes unforgettable. Scarcity transforms ordinary value into symbolic power. Social dominance thrives on this same tension, presence and absence, reward and restraint. The one who controls this rhythm controls others' emotions. This is why the silent man often dominates the loud one, why the mysterious figure attracts more than the desperate pursuer. Scarcity amplifies every human response. Desire, fear, respect, even love. Deprivation sharpens attention. It forces people to think, to chase, to earn. That's why the one who withholds seems magnetic. He activates the chase dynamic in everyone around him. If you don't control scarcity, others will use it against you. They'll make their attention, their approval, their time feel rare, and you'll find yourself chasing them. Unknowingly obeying the same psychological law Machiavelli mastered centuries ago. To rule your world, you must reverse this dynamic. Be the source of scarcity, not the victim of it. Machiavelli warned that a ruler must guard his presence like a treason, appear rarely, but with impact. Yet today, men have done the opposite. They've turned themselves into open books, always online, always responding, always performing. Technology has trained them to destroy their own scarcity. Social media made it worse. Every man now lives on display, posting, messaging, chasing likes, desperate to prove relevance. Availability has become a reflex, not a choice. You reply instantly. You check notifications compulsively. You reveal what you feel before thinking why. In the digital age, silence feels like death, so men drown themselves in noise just to be seen. But here's the paradox. The more visible you are, the less power you hold. Constant presence breeds boredom. When everyone can reach you, you stop feeling rare. You become routine. The digital man, always reachable, bleeds his authority with every message, every story, every seen reply. He mistakes attention for respect, validation for influence. Contrast him with the rare man, the one who moves in silence, who responds when he chooses, not when he's summoned. He doesn't need to prove. He lets the absence speak. His value isn't built on how much he shows, but on what he withholds. That restraint builds tension, and tension builds power. This is the collapse of masculine polarity when a man abandons his stillness and mystery for constant display. The result is predictable. Women lose attraction, peers lose respect, and his presence loses weight. Machiavelli would see today's world as a kingdom of weak, Princes, men who've surrendered control of their own attention. But the one who reclaims scarcity, who becomes unreachable by design, regains what the digital world stole: mystery, respect, and the power to command attention without asking for it. Every message you send too soon kills a bit of your power. Absence, when used strategically, becomes gravity, the invisible force that pulls attention toward you without movement or effort. It's not emptiness. It's energy withheld with intent. Silence unsettles people because it creates uncertainty, and uncertainty creates fascination. Look at the world's most desired brands. They don't flood the market, they disappear. Luxury exists not because of quality alone, but because of controlled limitation. The rare drop, the limited edition, the invitation-only access, all of it designed to trigger the mind's obsession with what it can't easily have. The same psychology applies to people. When your presence is limited, your perceived value multiplies. Leaders who understand this rarely speak, but when they do, everyone listens. Their silence isn't weakness, it's dominance disguised as patience. The pause before a response, the absence before reappearance, the delayed answer. Each becomes a silent reminder of who sets the pace. In relationships, withdrawal magnifies emotional impact. When you don't chase after every misunderstanding or respond to every text instantly, you signal composure. You show that your attention is earned, not given. That restraint separates the emotionally strong from the needy. In business, the principle is identical. The product that's sold out becomes a must-have. The expert who's hard to reach is more respected than the one always available. Scarcity elevates perception. It makes people project value onto you, even when you do nothing. Absence is the art of tension. It teaches others that your presence has a cost. The weak rush to fill silence because they fear being forgotten. The powerful embrace it because they know that absence, used wisely, makes every return unforgettable. Scarcity is not luck. It's not mystery. It's a deliberate strategy, one that Machiavelli himself would craft with precision. Power is not in how much you offer, but in how intentionally you withhold. The man who learns to engineer scarcity on every level, emotional, social, and material, becomes magnetic, respected, and untouchable. 1. Emotional scarcity. Restrain what you reveal. Emotions are power. The man who reveals every thought, every feeling, every frustration, hands his control to others. Machiavelli advised rulers to be a great pretender and dissembler. In modern terms, that means composure. When others panic, you stay calm. When insulted, you stay still. When excited, you show only a fraction. Emotional scarcity tells the world, nothing can shake me. It builds trust, fear, and intrigue, the holy trinity of influence. Example, in arguments, stay measured. Don't rush to defend. Your silence will say more than 1,000 justifications. In attraction, avoid oversharing emotions early. Let your restraint build tension, because emotion withheld is infinitely more powerful than emotion unleashed. 2. Social scarcity. Appear less. Impact more. Machiavelli wrote that rulers should avoid becoming too familiar. Familiarity breeds contempt. The same applies today. Be seen rarely, but with gravity. The man who's always around fades into the background. The one who appears selectively commands attention. Example, don't attend every gathering or post daily online. Choose moments that matter, then show up with focus and energy. When you walk into a room after absence, people notice. When you speak after silence, people listen. Scarcity amplifies presence. 3. Material scarcity. Protect what you offer. In a world where everyone overshares knowledge, access, and energy, the man who holds back becomes invaluable. Don't give away your time freely. Don't share every insight or skill without intention. The more difficult it is to access your value, the higher it's perceived. Example, if you're a creator, give taste, not saturation. If you're a professional, deliver excellence, but on your terms. Be generous with impact, not availability. When you ration what you offer, your worth multiplies. Controlled scarcity is not arrogance, it's awareness. It's the realization that mystery, space, and restraint are not weaknesses, but weapons. When you master these, you no longer chase attention. Attention orbits you. Now you understand the art, but there's a final, darker truth. Scarcity, if mishandled, can destroy as easily as it builds. Every weapon, when overused, turns against its wielder, and scarcity is no exception. What begins as strategy can easily become manipulation. What starts as composure can harden into coldness. Machiavelli understood that power without balance leads not to mastery, but to downfall. The prince who isolates himself entirely loses the very influence he sought to control. Scarcity breeds desire only when it feels earned, not when it feels like punishment. When you withdraw too much, you stop inspiring respect and begin provoking resentment. People turn from fascination to frustration, from admiration to apathy. The art of withholding must never become the habit of neglect. True Machiavellian mastery lies in rhythm, knowing when to appear and when to vanish. Presence is the spark, absence is the oxygen. One without the other suffocates the flame. The strongest men are not ghosts. They are storms that pass with precision, silent long enough to be missed, but never gone long enough to be forgotten. Scarcity without empathy becomes narcissistic control. It turns relationships into games of starvation, not respect. Power that isolates is not strength. It's fear disguised as superiority. The goal is not to detach from humanity, but to rise above emotional chaos so that your presence becomes a choice, not a craving. Balance is the final discipline. The wise man withholds to create value, not suffering. He uses scarcity to elevate, not to humiliate. He controls distance, but never loses warmth. He remains mysterious, not absent. Selective, not cold. Commanding, not cruel. Machiavelli's true genius wasn't in creating fear. It was in managing it. To master scarcity is to master timing, to appear precisely when the world begins to forget you, and remind it why it shouldn't. People don't value what's always available. They crave what they can't easily have. This is the eternal law of power, desire, and dominance. From emperors to empires, from kings to conquerors, every powerful figure has understood one truth: scarcity commands. Respect. In the modern world of endless noise and instant access, most men have forgotten this law. They give too much of their time, their words, and their energy, hoping to be noticed, only to be ignored. But the man who reclaims scarcity reclaims control. When you stop offering yourself freely, the world begins to lean toward you. When you slow your responses, your presence starts to echo. When you choose silence over reaction, your value multiplies. Scarcity isn't cruelty, it's calibration. It's knowing that your energy, your time, and your attention are currencies of power. And only the disciplined know how to spend them. So ask yourself, will you keep giving yourself away, or will you become rare enough to be valued? Most men will never understand this law, but those who do will never be ignored again.